Our guest today is based in Denmark. Now, for those who know me personally, this is a momentous first meeting here because of a few different circumstances. So for one, this artist's latest album is with a group called the Tone of Voice Orchestra, Running from the Devil, which we'll talk about. But before that, in 2025, she put out a solo album called A Songwriter's Odyssey that continues her discography. It came out on January 31st, 2025. Now, 10 years before that, in 2015, I went to Copenhagen for 3-ish months, and that was the only time that I ever got to go on a solo trip by myself. I was 20 years old, and that's a whole other story. So that's a fun coincidence too, where I went to Copenhagen, and this artist recorded this album in Vancouver with John Raham at Afterlife Studios and a bunch of musicians that we know. Not only that, but 2 days before this album came out, I went to Afterlife Studios for the first time and recorded an album there with one of my friends.
Yeah.
So the universes bring us together. Please welcome Trinelise Væring.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a great welcome. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah. And a lot of connections there that I didn't know of, that you've been here even. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to declare these things off the top. You don't want to just reveal that like 30 minutes in. It's like, oh yeah, I've been to Copenhagen. No, but it's been a while now for me. I mean, I haven't been back, so it's kind of interesting to reflect on it, I guess. But you were in Vancouver, I guess, a couple years ago to record this album, right?
It was actually 23. I was there twice for the recording and then for the mix, I think. And I was even there in 2018, 17 maybe, because this is the second album that I do with John, but the first one he came to Copenhagen, so I just went over for the mix. So I've actually spent several weeks in Vancouver, but I've only seen his studio. I've just had last time when I came for the mix, I thought I needed one day to kind of get my jet lag under control, and so I came one day early and I took a hike out this place where they have this hanging bridge and you could see a little bit of the mountains, but otherwise it's like I come out of the studio and I see all these beautiful mountains and I'm thinking one day I like to go. But I hope I will this summer because I have applied to a zillion of festivals, so maybe if just one or two of those pan out, I will go there and make it a kind of a holiday, so even if they're like a couple of weeks apart, I would just rent a car and go see places. So yeah, that's what I'm hoping for.
I want to get into the time that you spent in Canada a little bit, but I think first I just want to hear a little bit about your music room, because it looks like you're in a great space. Like, how long have you had this space set up and functioning? You got a bass, you got a drum set, you got all kinds of patch cables. Looks like you even have some kind of speaker or something, or maybe that's a desk. But tell me about the room you're in. Yeah,
this is I live on the next floor. This is like the ground floor, and this is the basement. And I'm actually I'm like 3 minutes away from Town Hall Square. So this is, I think it must be the only rehearsal room in the very city center. So we feel really fortunate. So we've had this thing since before my son was born, and he's 26. So it's for a long while. It took a while to kind of, get going. And we use it as a studio in the sense that I have a podcast that I can record here, and recorded my additional vocals here. But you can also hear the cars. It's not like isolated, and I don't have a really good microphone, so I don't sing leads or record albums or anything. But if there was like something missing, we do a choir vocal or something, I can do it here and send it over to John, for instance. Or I have all my stuff down here, and the street is right out there, just like 3 steps up. So it's really convenient.
When did you first come to Vancouver, or Canada, even if it was somewhere different?
Yeah, that was 2018, I think, for the mix of the previous album. Yeah, when I just saw the inside of John's studio. But so I haven't been before. The reason why I contacted him was an album that he produced with Frazee Ford that I really enjoyed, from 2016, I think that album was. And she had a rhythm section with organ and horns, and I thought, oh, I really like that thing of the kind of the soul vibe. And then she was just singing like a regular singer-songwriter, not like with the usual soul licks and stuff. And so I thought, oh, I want to try to incorporate organ and horns in my then band. And then I found John's address and wrote to him a couple of times. And because I thought, I mean, I might even just ask the actual guy to come here and help me with, getting that sound. And then he came over and recorded it and mixed it back in Vancouver. That's when I went the first time.
Yeah, I think that album by Frazee Ford is Indian Ocean, if I'm looking at the timeline for
sure. Yeah, or September Fields. Maybe isn't the album called September Field? Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, but that's the one.
We'll check it out.
That's for sure. Yeah.
That's an interesting comparison for some of the music that you've made. You've made a lot of music that combines a lot of different traditions and influences. You being a singer-songwriter, the people who you work with, who's in your band, you've covered a lot of ground. But the kind of music that John is known for making here, it's a great match for you. Like if you listen to your solo music, especially now on A Songwriter's Odyssey, you'll know that like obviously this was a great project for John Raham. And that's because he ended up putting this together at Afterlife Studios with you on this particular album. But yeah, this kind of mix of some folk traditions, but also it's rock, like it's rock and roll singer-songwriting too, to a lot of extent. There's a lot of acoustic parts to it, but this is definitely a great musical match between you and him. I could tell right away for sure.
Yeah, and the first one we did, he didn't even understand what I was saying because, for me as a lyric-centric songwriter, it was kind of weird because I was singing in Danish on that old album there, so I kind of translated the lyrics to him, but I still felt that he really had my back on it. And so that kind of paved the way for this album. And I just thought, when I'd written it, the Songwriter's Odyssey album, I thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool to actually do something with John where I sing in a language that he can get? And it did make a difference for the way we worked because of the way the lyrics resonated, I guess. Mm-hmm.
That is an interesting point, the two languages that you've done your records in. Like let me know if I understand the context right. I think some of your earliest records, they were closer to mainstream jazz and they were in English. And then you started singing in Danish in your solo discography. And now on a lot of these recent releases, like, Tone of Voice Orchestra is kind of another interesting thing, but at least on Songwriter's Odyssey, it's back to English. Yeah.
Yes, that's true. I was a jazz vocalist and just my mind was set on that for the first 3, 4, 5 albums, depending on how you count. The 90s, I think the last jazz album would be 2000 2000 probably. And then we went on a tour in Australia then with these English songs, and I had so many so much dialogue with people and audiences who came up and said, oh, that song was blah blah blah, really nice, I like the lyric and I can see myself in it, etc. And I thought, so if I sing in Danish in Denmark, I would get the same response because I never got that same sort of engagement with my lyrics. And so I did, from 2008 was the first one, I did 3 albums in Danish, which were also much more rock albums, so it was also a genre change. And but then with COVID, while I was doing my own solo things in Danish, I still worked with different bands where I was still sort of singing in English. And so came COVID, and I sat I have a little allotment with a really small house, and it has solar power, so I could only bring my acoustic guitar, no piano, no, like electric guitar amp or anything. And so I sat there and wrote songs, and this was also after having had a long period of listening to country music, or Americana styles. And so I just, with the guitar, that's just what came out. And I thought, I need to, when all this is over and we're not cooped up at home, I need to travel with my songs. And since I didn't imagine anybody would invite me on a tour, I thought I need to, write these songs and collaborate with people from other countries to kind of get a new feeling of the world again. And so that's sort of why I switched back to English, because I had an international mindset for this one, because Americana is not a big genre here. It's like, really small. It's more and more popular though, but not. I'm told it's called Canadiana in in Canada, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting point there about the genres, because I think like there is a quite famous now Scandinavian group, at least Swedish, who are in that genre and who've combined it with pop, right? You know, I'm thinking of First Aid Kit and other
sure.
things like that. It's not as adjacent to a lot of the music you've made, but it is, if we're just talking about what else is in that area, I guess there's that. But yeah, you're right. It wouldn't be associated with the scene that you would have like come up in Denmark, or that the music you would have been playing beforehand. It would have been a departure to play like this kind of more country influenced music.
Yeah, I think I lost a bit of audience, but I also gained some others, you know. But it's like the national radio almost does not play this kind of hand played acoustic music, or they play, you know, indie rock and pop. Generally, it's a really small territory. So anything that's small is really small. That's the same with the jazz. You know, it's like, and you're a jazz bass player, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I've sort of always end up in these adjacent genres, not in the mainstream. But that's just I guess. I just am really hungry for new inspiration, and also like with Tone of Voice Orchestra, which has a much more global roots sort of vibe. It's just a matter of, you know, listening to things and saying, oh, I want to engage with that, you know, and my audience gets a bit confused, I think. So there's always somebody who thought that, you know, they loved my jazz things, for instance, and now they think, why is she doing country? You know, it's like, but I can't think about it, you know, in the sense of, yeah, I just have to go with my passion points, you know.
When you were, let's say, in the 80s, just broadly speaking, like were you getting out there and launching into a music scene and playing right away at that time? Or were you doing something else? Or like, what were some of the earliest things that you were into and that you got out doing?
In the 80s, I was in high school. So when I was playing guitar, and I think originally I actually listened to a lot of singer-songwriters from the 70s, which has kind of come back. But then when I got into high school, I was, you know, I kind of had to let my guitar go for a while because I was a much better singer than I was a guitar player. And so I got into all these high school bands with guys only singing, as the time was a little bit of fusion, you know, kind of fusion-ish pop, jazz fusion. That was really popular at the time. But the thing that sort of pushed me towards jazz was the pop scene in that era was, you know, really big labels or major labels, and, you know, big dig energy, a lot of big arena concerts and lots of reverb on the snare drums. And I had, you know, grown up with these, not grown-ups, but, you know, just from my older cousins, etc. I have learned of all these singer-songwriters like Jenny Z and Joni Mitchell, Ricky Lee Jones, etc. And they were sort of what I really liked. And so I just didn't so much like the pop music of the 80s, to be honest. It's come back with a vengeance, and I'm like, why? But everybody seems to love it, though. I still don't. So, and then I just realized or discovered that in the jazz sort of circuit, there was all these really nice guys, primarily always guys, who was sort of in it for the music and not for all the external, you know, and the big dig energy was gone, and everybody was super intelligent and just nerdy and just nerded with the music. And so that's why I ended in that, and not actually because I was writing a lot of jazz. So even then I was a jazz inflected singer-songwriter, or a singer-songwriter with a lot of jazz. I don't know what you would call it, but so, and then I met my husband. He's a jazz saxophonist, and so I sort of grew my networks through his, you know, and I got a really good jazz trio that I played with of Scandinavian really greats for almost 10 years, which was a great school, which I also think is meaningful in the sense that everything else I've done since, I've done it with that thing, you know, that's how I learned to be a musician, that flexibility and that the way your ears work and stuff. So it's a really good education, I think.
That's interesting. You had two different sort of reactions or responses to the music of that time when you were coming of age. It's like one of them was looking back a decade to that singer-songwriter music in the 70s, and then the other one was as you found these people who were playing the more jazz-based music, you found that as well. And so you found two things that you could take solace in and not have to play like what I would think of as like the hair metal, or on one hand that power pop hair metal, but also like I was thinking of like Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like you wouldn't have to play that because you found these other two things. One of them kind of looked backward, not a huge amount of time, and then the other one was about like people you found who you could play music with now, even though it ended up being like jazz music that could draw from different times, but you were able to kind of get out of time and get out of the prevailing thing.
That's a really nice way of putting it, getting out of time, because I always thought I was kind of out of sync with the time I was in. Whereas now I'm sort of a little bit more in sync because of the Americana thing is getting bigger here. So the first time I'm doing something that has a little bit of a on and upward, yeah.
Well, you were kind of ahead of your time in that way, because now, like, especially everybody younger than me as well, but people my age to your kids' age, it's the idea of what kind of music is popular in your youth or in your high school years. Yeah, it does still exist. Like, I mean, there is still obviously pop music, and there's the global artists that you could name who were like, when I was in high school, you think about like Drake and Justin Bieber and Taylor Swift and Katy Perry, right? Like there's full on pop, but it doesn't have the same pervasiveness that it did in the mid 80s, for sure. There's no way. I mean, we have a lot more tools that we can use, like if you're growing up now, but even 15 years ago, we had a lot more tools we could use. Just go out there and find whatever music we wanted. And it wasn't everywhere the same way that it would have been.
I mean, then it was really, you had to decide. You went into a record store and could only afford one. So I remember having to choose from Alanis Morissette and Björk in a record store, and I went home with Alanis Morissette, which probably has made a big difference for me that was the album I came back with, and which I've heard so many times. Later, I bought Björk on a CD, and I've heard that too, of course. But the thing that you really had to, yeah. So even in your age, from when you were in high school to now, there is a difference. But I actually think that streaming has opened my ears to a lot of things because you can hear it so easily. So I am, as a music listener and music aficionado, I think streaming is so nice. As a music producer and and like a label person, I think it's not so good, but it just sort of pulled the rug out from under the financials kind of carpet for the music industry. But as a user, I think it's really good.
Also, look at that, Alanis Morissette. That's a Canadian artist there.
I know. Actually, so many. I think we knew that she was Canadian, but a lot of Canadian artists, I would have to discover that they were Canadian because they're not kind of. Which I wonder why, because they're not kind of saying so, like out loud that they're so Canadian, which I wonder why that is.
Well, I can tell you about why, because for me, having grown up here, it's very apparent why. And this might kind of get at a difference between the kind of entertainment cultures or the culture here. Like, I mean, I think the reason why, because a lot of those people I named, like Justin Bieber and Drake, are Canadian. Sometimes they talk about that a lot and sometimes they don't. And there's a lot of global pop artists who are. But I think maybe the reason why I'd perceive, like if we're asking, why aren't they as overt about telling everybody that they're Canadian? It's because when we begin, the goal that appears on the horizon in front of all of us, whether we embrace that goal or not, is to be in the US and to be working in the US. Is not quite the same thing as to become American, but that's what's on the horizon. That's what you would see. That's what anybody would see as the pinnacle if they were starting out in their crafts. And that could go in so many different genres and scenes, like in pop, for sure. If you're if you're going to try and climb the mountain of pop music, you're going to be working in the US as a Canadian. If you're going to be playing jazz, you know, you're going to be going to New York. So it's always out there. Kind of, it's like you can't avoid that view of it being there, kind of no matter which path you pursue here in Canada. So that, I'd say that's a thing about like growing up here that most Canadians have to reckon with that, how they feel about that.
And do you have to not say you're Canadian for the Americans to love you? Is that a sense of it, part of it?
You want to fit in with the Americans more so. It's not that they won't like you if you say that you're Canadian, but you want to be able to pass American, I would say is how I could describe it to any given listener or audience. Yeah.
Okay, because from the other thing about Canadian music is that you are really good at sort of, the CanCon thing and all this. We're kind of looking at that and thinking, what a brave and meaningful move, that you kind of have a sense of protecting your own, your own music, which is, I guess, super natural because you have this really big neighbor just pushing music and being so, what do you call it, colonialized. They're trying to colonialize you with their culture.
It's
so you
domination.
need to go like, ugh. Yeah, which is also something I found, because I thought with the album I made and the connections, I thought it would be, and I even hired a publicist from Vancouver, and I thought, oh, so they're going to be interested in what I do. But they was like so obvious, nobody was interested. And I was and I feel actually that some of the American stations that I've plugged my songs to, etc., they've been more open. Oh, fun, you come from Scandinavia. So then I my idea is that may be because you're so used to being bombarded with music from outside that this kind of the general idea is we don't want to know. We kind of want to, I don't know if that's true. Can that be true?
That's really interesting. Yeah, I wonder about that, about how we perceive music of countries that are, geographically and population smaller than us, and how we feel about that, given that we're used to this kind of feeling of domination by the US culture. There isn't quite a comparable for Denmark, is there? Because Sweden is not nearly as much bigger than Denmark as the US is bigger than Canada.
No. But there is a little bit, because there's a lot more Swedish pop music here than there is Danish in Sweden. Also because Sweden has a much better, what can I say, system, because they had ABBA to kind of professionalize the whole way things work, and we didn't. So things here are more, we didn't have, like what do you call it, publishers, not publicists, but publishing and stuff like this just came years after here. So we were kind of a little backward, and they were they were killing it, internationally. So, and Cardigans, and they have other big international successes where we were a little bit more backwards. So, but it's not the same at all.
Founded in Sweden. The Pirate Bay was founded in Sweden. Yeah. That's weird. Is there anything, are there things about the Swedish culture that felt to you like what I described the US culture feels like to us here?
No, not that much. I don't, they're not trying to kind of force their thing on us. It's because we generally like it. I think it doesn't feel as, Yeah.
I got to go to Sweden very briefly when I didn't make it very far. I didn't even make it to Stockholm. I was kind of just in Malmö, and I was in the south and the southwest and southeast. Just like basically like a little road trip. And that's kind of all I got to see of Sweden. But other than that, I just rented the same place in the Copenhagen area, and I kind of stayed there for a few months. The season that I was there, it was probably a good season. It was August, September, October, and then kind of into November I got out. So I actually did get a pretty good weather. Like I didn't really see any snow.
No, it's really snowy now, but that's not that usual. Some winters we only have snow for like 5 days, but now it's been really cold January, and there's so much snow now that you can hardly get your car out in the middle of the city. So this is a bit. But do you know that there is some sort of friendship level or collaboration with Vancouver and Sweden? Do you know that? They have have some, because a lot of the jazz musicians friends that we have in Sweden have been to Vancouver.
Oh, yes. I know why this is. It's because he's now passed away, but the longtime director of the Coastal Jazz and Blues Society, which produces the Vancouver International Jazz Festival, his name was Ken Pickering.
Yeah,
he was
I know.
a big champion of Scandinavian creative music. Yeah.
Yeah, he invited, my husband was over and playing a whole tour in Canada, which was Ken Pickering's doing with a 10-piece band. This was like 15 years ago. That wouldn't have been possible now, I guess. But at the time, Ken Pickering fixed that. Yeah, and I actually knew he had gone. He had passed.
Yeah,
So.
in 2018, around the time you first came here. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like that's before kind of the time that I really saw it. It's fine. I wasn't really in the jazz community so much. Like I had kind of come up playing in it when I was a teenager, and like I was in high school playing music, and then music university briefly playing music. But then I kind of left, and I kind of went to Copenhagen to run away from that stuff and just to have a different space in my life, which maybe you can understand, right? Like is a thing that we do sometimes. And then when I came back, like I started playing folk music. Like I started a folk rock band with a fiddle playing friend of mine, 2 other friends of mine, and we played like Canadian folk festivals for 3 or 4 years. I didn't come back to the jazz community here until after COVID.
Did you play with any Danish musicians when you were in Copenhagen?
I mean, a couple. Like I went to, one of the first things I did music wise was I went to Jazzhus Montmartre. Like I went there, I saw Benny Green, the piano player. That was really fun. And then I met some people who were going to the Rhythmic Conservatory, who were around my age, because they would have been active students there if they were around my age. And I went to jam with a couple people, but really I wasn't trying to go there to play. It was fun to cross over that, but I was really trying to get away from all that stuff. So I didn't pursue it that much further.
You should come back.
I know.
Yeah, it's actually the jazz. Montmartre is still there, but there is the other big place, which was Jazz House. Copenhagen Jazz House is closed for jazz music. It's still there, called something else, and only have different styles now. But so it's not as big a jazz city as it was, I will say. So maybe also good that I came out in time. Came out of it. Yeah.
How similar did you feel that Vancouver was to Copenhagen when you came here? Because I remember the things that I felt were similar and not, I guess. I think there were a lot of similarities.
Yeah, like what other, and what context you think of? What kind of?
So, I mean, obviously there's a lot more people on bikes, and the bike infrastructure is really different, but the intention and the feeling of it seems kind of similar, like it being coastal in that way, and the downtown kind of being down there and kind of surrounded by both artificial and non-artificial bodies of water, like the different kind of neighborhoods, the downtown, they kind of have matches for the neighborhoods downtown in Vancouver. And it made sense to me, I guess, navigating it. At the time, I think there was this kind of like hipster millennial bougie aesthetic that was popular in both. Like, you know, I could find kind of the cafes and the restaurants that seemed like ones I remembered from Vancouver. The weather was nice when I was there, so it kind of felt like Vancouver weather. I know it wouldn't have if I stayed longer, but just walking around and riding around it felt kind of similar. Yeah,
I think it's a little bit more like the city center here doesn't have a lot of tall houses. You know, it's just like 5-6 stories, and a little bit more middle-aged city center. It's a more compact, because of all cities in Europe are more compact because they were built in the Middle Ages, so that's different. But I think that the people thing is a big similarity in the sense that the friendliness and the people are decent in a different way, and not so. I can't say all Americans are not decent. Of course, there's a lot of decent Americans, but it's just a different vibe. It's also less like humility. Is that the word? Humility is the Canadians are more, you know, they don't like toot their own horn all the time, and they don't say they can do everything. You know, they just kind of a little bit more level-headed, I would say. So I feel that is although you are more polite than we are for sure. So I really had to think of that when I went to Vancouver. I had to be a little bit extra kind of polite than I would probably be around my peers here. But so there is a difference, but there's also a lot of similarities, as I guess even though you're a big country, you also feel like a small country with your neighbors. So that mentality of, you know, navigating that maybe brings some similarities into play and how people feel, and also all these kind of the way your legislation is, and it's kind of, you sort of take care of the health system and the way that you support your arts, etc. There are many similarities there in this. I got a grant for my album actually from BC Creative, and I was like flabbergasted, can that really happen? It's not like everybody just, and you don't see people begging in the streets, etc. You kind of take care of your people, and there is a similarity to the mentality of the people, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, that would definitely, I think in Canada, we think of that as something that we probably developed with Scandinavia in mind as a model, what we were trying to do. Like, I think we think of Scandinavia as really having that figured out, and that we're trying to be more like that than like the US.
Yeah, it is somehow alike. But the thing I said about politeness was, I just realized that I just before I went to Canada this last time to play with the band and the people I didn't know, because John had set it up, I saw a video of British actor Hugh Grant, and he had done a movie with a Danish female director, and in the interview he said that he really had to first he thought she was really bossy because she said, go over there, sit there, blah, blah, blah. And not like, would you please, might you want to eventually sit, and we're like, we don't have the word please. It's just not used, more or less. So it's just like, go over there. And when I saw that, I just said, wow, I just have to remember that people actually, if they're not used to that way of communicating. So I kind of made a point of trying to remember. And even now when I write emails to Canadians, I'm something like, oh, I sent this and it was way too direct. I had to kind of, I'm trying to learn, so I don't piss people off without wanting to.
Funny how you can observe that. So, the people who played with you on A Songwriter's Odyssey, they will absolutely be known to people in the audience of Rhythm Changes. You got Scott Smith, who's the perfect guitar player for you because he knows all about this he knows how to get every sound in this kind of music on every instrument, like pedal steel, dobro, guitars, banjo, anything. You got Chris Gestrin, who plays a lot of jazz music and has for a long time, so that's great to have him on organ and keys. You got Jeremy Holmes, who plays a lot of roots music here on bass. You got a few bass players actually. If I'm looking at the track credits, you got James Meager also joining you on bass. He's known for playing a lot of improv, so that's kind of cool that you got him in there. And Darren Paris, who's I guess known for playing more pop and rock. So that's a really interesting trio of people who you had on bass in the credits here. They would all be doing different things at any given time in Vancouver. That's cool. That's
all John's job, because I think he plays a lot with Darren, I know, but Darren couldn't do it all day. So we kind of now figured, and I said I want a double bass on a few things. I really want a double bass because I'd actually imagined double bass on all the songs. But then Darren is also so elegant. So it makes just sense. And then we just took the times when they could be there. That's when we took the songs that were made most sense with the way they played. And it was really, like you say, Scott is just, this is also my first album ever with pedal steel, and I just wanted to have that. For me, this is a country album. I know it's not straight out country, but I'm thinking, old country-ish. And so I wanted pedal steel, and I also spoke hard for, can I have banjo? And John, he said, like, everybody wants banjo. You can't have it. But then I did get banjo on a few things, and I even got like a dobro on it. One thing that I really said, can we please try it? And then it worked so well. So I did get everything. And I even got, what's this guy called? Came in and played fiddle on a song.
I saw that, Trent Freeman. Yeah,
he came in. And I like, if I'm going back, I would love to have some more fiddle, because I think that gives it that folksy sound that I also really love. So yeah, but Scott is definitely a must-have if I'm going back.
Yeah, absolutely. He plays a lot of great pedal steel. He's the guy for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you had Trent on some tracks, and then you have a clarinet player. Did you overdub with the clarinet player on your side back in
I did it here because I felt that those particular songs that there was something that I wanted in there that we didn't, get. And I had I had all the tapes and could, add stuff from home. All the choir things I've added at home, and I added her. And I wrote a sort of little arrangement for 2 songs where she came in and did those, dubbed that. And yeah, I was trying not to do too much, but because, you can also like fuck it up by adding too much. I added a shitload of vocals, to be honest. And sometimes I'm just sending it off and I'm saying to John, there's like, I double myself out, left and right, and you can just, you pick what you like. And sometimes he was like, that's a bit much, and so it's kind of, I sent him a supermarket of a lot of different vocals, but he got a lot of it in there because it's just, it builds the songs, I guess. It makes a chorus more of a chorus if you can kind of, give it a little bit.
We will talk about Tone of Voice Orchestra probably in this way too, but I wanted to go to 3 tracks from a songwriter's Odyssey that I thought were kind of my most memorable, after I've listened to the album. And I just wanted to tell you which tracks they are, and you can tell me whatever you want to share about them or whatever comes to mind about them. So we'll start with If I Were a Builder.
Yeah. That was during COVID, and there was all these shop lockdowns, and when at the end society was going to reopen, it became so obvious that the politicians didn't consider art. It was like a nice to have, not a need to have. So everybody else could go back to work first, like the hairdressers and the tattoo parlors, because they have small businesses, as the politicians put it. The musicians have small businesses too. So it's like, I was just beginning to wonder, what would it be like to have a job that everybody understood what was and that made sense? And that's why there are words in there like infrastructure and, so it's kind of, I had that in mind when I wrote it, that the politicians, that what can you do as a songwriter when everybody else have, everybody knows what a builder can do. He builds houses, right? And, so that was the state of mind when I wrote it. And then I had a lot of fun I have this little game with myself that I use words that I'm thinking I'm the only person who ever have used that word in a song. And there's a cement mixer in there, for instance. And there's a vagina in there, and the stuff that I just put in there, and I have a really cool time singing these words, and like infrastructure, not so easy to sing. And and then we actually recorded it first in a little bit more jazzy way, but the chords have a jazz tendency, and then they became too much jazz, so we redid it, and that's that's how it ended up. And so that was kind of my idea with it. It's kind of also a little bit of a signature song, just because of the way it ends. I like the way it, people should go out and hear it. It has an interesting lyric, I think. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it expands from that time to cover just, I think about it because like I very rarely have I had what you described as like a job that makes sense to other people. So I appreciate it for that reason.
That's good. And also the title, a lot of the titles on the albums are just the first line, because when I wrote it, I just put it into my computer, with the first line so I could find it again. And then usually I kind of find new interesting like titles for songs. But for this album, I just there's also one called I Hope He Cancels and stuff like this. I just kind of really like those odd lines that came out of that titles. And I thought, if I were, if I'm looking at an album, just scrolling through it on Spotify, and it has really like I Love You and Last Summer, blah, 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 real, generic titles, I'm not listening to the album. So I thought I would myself, if I saw these titles, think, I got to go listen to that song, So that was why it's called also such a kind of off thing as If I Were a Builder.
Well, speaking of off things, getting the hang of being a failure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the first song I wrote for the album with that title, specifically because I thought if I saw a song with that, that's not because of it, but I thought if I ever saw a song with that title, I would need to hear it. And before writing it, I had heard an album by a Scottish singer-songwriter called Josie and Clark. And on her album, there was a song where she sang, it's not Chicago's fault. No one came to see my show. And then she was kind of expanding on that. And I just felt that was so brave because she was honest about not feeling a success all the time. And like the way we act on social media, we always sort of parade the victories. And, you know, we go to a gig and there's only 20 people. And then we take a picture, like a selfie, where you can't see how many people are there. And we post it on Instagram and you go, I thank you, Aarhus from yesterday. And nobody knows there were only 20 people. And then once another artist comes to Aarhus, she will think, so there's only 20 people, but how come there were so many people when Trinelise came? So I'm just kind of, I thought, I want to write an album where I am brave and honest. And so this was my attempt at being brave and honest, but also owning it, because I can also see a lot of, I actually don't feel like a failure, not all the time anyway. And I think that song also says that, you know, there are a lot of good things about being a DIY. You don't have to play the same songs 100 times over if you don't want them, and you don't have to take all that shit from all these executive types. And so there's like many, it kind of also owns the place that I am. So yeah. And I could say that Scott plays a really, really cool guitar solo that took me back to Mark Knopfler. Yeah, Brothers in Arms.
Hey, there's a great band from the mid-'80s that did make music that would have resonated with you.
Sure. I didn't ask him to do that. That's just what he, you know, he gave so many great, you know, performances that he just came out of him with no instructions.
Yeah. I think that's my favorite song on the record. I think one of the cool things about it is that it's like an upbeat song, despite the title.
Yeah, it's true. I'm glad that you say that, because yeah. And it also ends on an upbeat note. It says, we're coming to get you. We're coming to get you. We're an army of failures and we're coming to get you. So it kind of ends in an off, you know, yeah, in a better place.
Yeah. And then the other one that I absolutely would want to bring up, because this is something that you know, I would feel called to do as well in kind of the albums that I've made. I mean, I've only made as a leader instrumental music, and so I haven't really had occasion. But like when I saw you do this, I was like, oh, this is something that resonates with me, and that I would feel called to do as well. Letter to My Younger Selves.
Yeah. That was I think it's kind of sometimes, you know, I'm always talking about the lyrics because that I am a lyric centric. So that's kind of why I write a song, is always that I have something I want to say, I guess. But I sometimes, if I don't have anything to say, I just take the date and I open a book that's on the nightstand, and I look at the page of the date, and then my trick is I need to find something on that page that I can write a song about, or just it triggers a song. And in this particular book, I can't remember which, there was somebody who was seeing a shrink, and that shrink said to her, you need to write a letter to your younger self, just the one self, so that you can kind of be kind to this young person you were, this hurt young person. And then I thought, oh, how about writing? Yeah, that's how the idea came, that to just kind of, every verse is a letter to one of my younger incarnations. That's why it's plural, younger selves. And, you know, with this sort of, I don't know if you get any wiser with age, to be honest, but you do have a different perspective. So kind of with the perspective I have now, I would kind of say something to my younger selves and see what comes out of that. And I'm playing that with my daughter. Now she's singing, you know, harmony parts sometimes when I play live. And it's really cool to stand there and singing about her age too, you know. So it's kind of that's another song with the clarinets. Yeah. By the way, yeah.
Okay, I want to flip to Tone of Voice Orchestra. There's 4 vocals, strings, saxophone, bass, and percussion. It's a really cool lineup. You threw out
and
hurdy-gurdy
and bagpipes. Yeah, and bagpipes.
Oh yeah, that's right. There's some bagpipes there too. You threw out Global Roots as like an example of how people might describe that, which is an interesting world that's different from all the other stuff that we've talked about. How did this group come about? How did you end up doing this group?
It's actually my jazz saxophonist husband. It was his original idea because he heard a Canadian band called, what was the name of that band? Bruce Peninsula. Do you know that one?
Okay.
It's not.
I don't think so.
It's not active anymore. But anyway, there was a big a lot of vocals in there, and a male vocal a lot of beats, not beats, but grooves, and a lot of vocal, and a male vocal who would kind of say something, and then the girls would kind of answer him. And I think Frederick imagined he would be playing something and we would answer. That didn't happen, of course, because then I got involved, and we just have but the whole project just became sort of, we want to everything that inspires us we can take that and put it into what do you call it, somewhere you go like into a bucket and you just turn it around and see what comes out.
Mixing pot or something. Yeah,
melting pot, yeah. And so we did this was back in 2018, maybe. We did a little 6 songs tester, and what we presented at a workshop thing, and and then we just went with it. And he had met some of the folk musicians. There's some jazz musicians, folk musicians, and then the vocals in there, and we just have had such a cool time of like, oh, there's this North African beat, can we do something with that and then write something else on top of it? And so we kind of co-write and have a lot of fun doing it. And sometimes when we co-write, one person is doing something. Typically Frederick is doing like a beat and some sort of vibe thing and kind of chords, and then he hands it over to me, and I'm like doing some melodic stuff, and without knowing what his idea was. So even if he had like a Moroccan something, I'm thinking, oh, this is and so we don't like explicitly always tell the other person what to work on. And then when one gets stuck, the other one kind of goes to the computer and work on it and develop it. So it's just been, but it's also a really difficult band to work with because there's 10 of us, and we need our own sound guy because there's so many weird instruments and balancing stuff. We can't just have any, but it's a really fun to do live also because it's always a big party.
Yeah, I really like that group. That matches a lot of stuff I've been drawn to over the years, projects that sound like that. I have 2 tracks from each record, I guess, that I want to bring up the same. Now, the thing about it, though, is on the newest one, on Running from the Devil, one of these tracks, the title is in Danish. And so if you'll permit me, I can try and butcher the pronunciation right now, or at least hopefully you'll know which track I'm referring to if I don't butcher it so badly. But I think my favorite track on that album that I kind of added to my like own folk playlist of all the stuff that I like and I threw into, the title in Danish is something like Dance om efteråret.
Yeah, Dance om efteråret, meaning dance in the fall. But that is an instrumental. So I didn't have anything, actually. It's actually all Frederick's. And I think the beautiful thing about it is that his kind of jazz thing matches with some Scandinavian roots. It's very folksy in the Scandinavian roots way, but then the chord changes have more jazz inflections because that's his thing. He's really good with harmonies and stuff. So it kind of developed. It's really beautiful. It started out as a polska, but really didn't end at a polska. And when the original violinist came, she was like confused because it's almost polska, but then it's not. And that's because, as Frederick said, I don't really even know what polska exactly is. So I just, wrote something on. So you kind of, if you don't learn anything really well, but it will come to your own in a sense. You just kind of go with your, So it's a very Scandinavian vibe song. Not a song, but I can't take any credit for it, to be honest. So it's a bit that's what you love the most, but okay.
I've played a lot of music and been at a lot of festivals with a lot of things that sound like that, for sure. Yes, it was a reference point for me. Okay, let's go to a song then. Let's go to We Owe It to the Planet.
Yeah, as it is, it's you have to, when you write something for 4 singers, you have to sort of find something to write that is not like where I was really personal on a songwriter's Odyssey album. I can write about myself, Then when you write for something that is, you have 4 adult women singing, you have to make sure that it's something that we all can feel is ours. And at some point, I guess I just, inspired by my daughter and her writing or saying to me that we need to do, like she's more environmentally observant than I am, I guess. And I just thought we need to like write a song about the responsibility that we have. And then, yeah. So, and it's a little bit more of an Americana flavored song, I think, than some of the other songs. Less roots, less global roots, but more Americana inspired. And some people say there's a string instrument in there that's a citern, which is a middle ages sort of a lute family instrument. And some people write, oh, that's a banjo, it's bluegrass. And I'm like, okay, but it's really not a banjo at all. It's kind of this lute thing.
Huh. Okay, going back to the self-titled Tone of Voice Orchestra 2022, I think this is probably the first time I heard your music, because I heard it through the online community called jazzfuel.com, which is run by a friend of mine, Matt Fripp. There's a lot of Danes who have come into Jazz Fuel at different times, maybe due to a partnership with the arts organization or something. But
yeah, he did.
I'm pretty sure I heard about this album in 2023, and then I didn't hear your music again until A Songwriter's Odyssey. So I think that's the first time I ever saw or heard your music. And the first track on that record is I Love It. He Loves Her For It. That is such a powerful track. Like the open folk harmonies, and then there's like a Coltrane influence kind of solo, and like it's a powerful track.
And there's a bagpipe is this really prominent there. Yeah. That is the kind of the Celts meet the jazz people, I guess. And that is
I love that.
That was, I think, more or less the first song that we wrote for the project. And it's sort of laid out what we had to do. Like there has to be a strong hook line, and there has to be a beat that is, or a groove that is, essential for the song. And this is kind of something that we work on for all our songs, that it has that. Although the new album, we try out more stuff too, because we already filled that thing out, but we still have to we're still thinking about it, that this is how we do it, that is the goal for every song. It has to have a good hook line, and it has to have an interesting beat. And the thing is, it's just, and it's really fun to sing. When the vocals, we kind of think we have to sing a little Bulgarian, not really Bulgarian, but like full throttle, and it's a lovely song to play. We still play it because it's kind of our claim to fame in a sense. And the lyric is actually, because the beat was Frederick made the beat, and it was so like whip, and I thought, okay, whip. So it's kind of a sort of a sadomasochistic song but nobody actually noticed, although it's kind of really obvious in the lyric that and she lets him have it. It's like she's beating him, basically. So it's kind of a hard lyric, but luckily nobody really made a point out of noticing. I think it was one British review kind of said, what? And I'm not at all into that, but I just, the way the beat was just kind of inspired me. There has to be something, there has to be a whip in there somewhere, so it's kind of that. So, yeah.
That's awesome. And then I think about ways that we could close. There's another track title, I guess, on the self-titled album that I ended up noticing later too. And there's a track called Driven. And then I don't know if this is the same thing or not, but if I just isolate that word appears in one of the songs I mentioned on A Songwriter's Odyssey. I'm pretty sure it's Letter to My Younger Selves. I don't think it's Getting the Hang of Being a Failure.
It's true.
What does that word driven mean to you?
That is actually, I would say about myself that I am driven. It means that there is something that makes me, just, I don't know what it is. Something that, makes me keep going. Even, I kind of feel it is my superpower in a sense that I am so driven by, what can I explain? There were so many things I want to do, and I have a long list of things that I need to do before I'm 60 years old. So, I could be actually just, not listening to so much new music and just be, taking it a little bit easy, but I am never in the easy corner. I'm always, like having new things I need to do, and just getting, it's just, it's the thing that I actually need to work on not being, because I think it's not so healthy, which I think I actually say in that, I can't remember, a letter to my younger self. It's not a healthy thing to be, but it's also a superpower. So it's like a little, yeah. And that song, Driven, is definitely about, you know, and what I'm always saying on stage when we play this song is that you have to be driven to have a 10-piece roots band. It's like you are trying to make a bumblebee fly, you know, it's almost not possible. And you only do that if you are driven. But I think actually I got an award 3 days ago, like Wednesday, that was called the Fighter Award, because people realize that I am so much of a fighter, and that has to do with being driven. You know, it's like you never kind of think, oh, it's good enough, you know, which I think I should learn, because then I would probably have a healthier and you know, old age if I can actually, you know. But again, it's a superpower in a sense. So I don't know. Maybe I don't really want to get rid of it.
That all resonates with me so much. I can recognize all those things across countries and across generations and stuff in you and what you do, because I feel that too. I feel that tension all the time of how much of it is bad versus how much of it is kind of always there, and like I feel like I can't escape.
And I think to a certain degree, everybody in the music industry are, you know, big fighters, and they are driven by something, because otherwise we would have, you know, just picked another job that kind of put food into our mouth and our, you know. So it is a struggle. So you need to be driven to actually do it.
Yeah. Is there anything else? There's so much we could talk about. I mean, It's so great that I think it's going to be in Vancouver, probably, I guess, that we would meet first. I bet you're going to come here before I make it out where you
to
are.
Denmark.
You're right. I absolutely want to at some point. But is there anything else right now that you wanted to point to or shout out before we wrap?
Oh, I want to say one thing that I sometimes forget to say, that I want to say to every young person in the world, and also every old person, that I think the people who burn out, this has to do with being driven, the people who burn out are the people who end up just giving to the music business, and they're playing concerts and they listen to themselves, but they never get the pleasure of really taking in, they stop listening to other music than themselves. And I think that's my whole drive, is that every Friday I hear new albums and new songs that I think are fantastic. I want to do that too. I want to, you know, and I think a lot of people my age, they've stopped listening to new music. They think it was much better way back, which I don't think so. I think the world is full of cool, very new music. And it's easier probably when you're young to keep going. But at some point, then you get kids and blah, blah, blah. And maybe I think that is my best advice to everybody in the world. You have to keep you have to use music. Don't only play music, you know, I think too.
That's a great sentiment to sum that up, because I mean, that sounds easy when you talk about it, but like so many things that require you to keep kind of doing it on an ongoing basis, and to continue paying attention to something for like an extended period of time, even if it's something you like. It's never as easy as it sounds, even though it sounds like it should be easy and fun. Yeah, it's interesting.
And go out and see live shows, because also a lot of young people after COVID, they were not cultured into watching live music. They only go if there's a big stadium thing. They don't go to small venues. And that is such a different experience that we all need. I mean, not only as musicians, but just it's such a cool thing to sit next to the band who actually plays.
Yeah, it was such an interesting time when I kind of started doing rhythm changes right after that, and like there was very little going on when I started doing it, which made sense because I didn't know what I was doing. So I was just trying to keep track of like a couple of things, and I feel like every year there's been more and more and more stuff happening, and it's been nice to have to feel like there's that lift. Yeah
I hope too that I will have a chance that there will be 1 or 2 festivals who actually want me, and then I will come over and maybe play duo with Scott or with more people, and then I can also hang out with you in Vancouver.
Yes. I so look forward to that. I had so much fun talking with you, Trinelise. I hope you have an
Me
thinking
too.
of time zones right now. I know you're getting towards the end of the day that we're speaking right now, and I'm just in the morning here. I haven't even had breakfast yet. So I hope you have a good night. And then,
I will.
We'll be in touch, and I would really excited to meet you either here or there, and it was very fun to connect with you. Thank you.
Bye bye, and thank you for having me.